Sit down. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Selectmen's meeting for June 12th. If you're watching at home, do not attempt to adjust your television.
It's May 21st.
It is May 21st. Oh my God, that was last year. Do not attempt to adjust your television set. I apologize for that, but this is going to be the highlight of the evening. It is our tradition to reorganize the board as our first act this evening, so I am going to have the privilege, on behalf of the board and in keeping with tradition of the town meeting, the third-year member of the board is nominated as chairman. The second-year member of the board serves as clerk. The third-year member of the board serves as member. So it is my honor to nominate Mrs. Hunter as chairman for this fiscal year.
Do I have to accept?
Well, wait. Do I have to second? That's the question.
Yes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations.
Give it the gavel.
Oh, I can absolutely give you the
Or you
gavel.
might, sometimes archives, instead of chairman, there's one that says chair.
There is.
But that's what I use, if you wanted to say chair.
Ooh, chair. So.
That's a fairly,
You can
that's
rule Mrs. Lisbon out
growing
of order if you want.
movement.
Oh.
So then it will be my honor to nominate Mr. Springer as clerk.
I second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
And would you like to have the honors?
Yes.
Oh, should I say Mr. Jeffries move? I'm going to move to nominate Mr. Jeffries as a member of the Board of Selectmen.
So honored.
Second.
So,
All in favor?
not all in favor, but we can do all in favor. I want to make sure you get all of the work. Then I will say all in favor. All in favor?
Aye. Oh, God. This is going to be a good night.
I hope so. Well, we've accomplished item number 1 on the agenda. So.
And we're on time.
And we're on time. No, we're 5 minutes late. So this evening, as many of you know, we are conducting interviews for the 2 finalists for the town administrator search. And first on the agenda is Chris Lawley. And Chris, we would like you to come sit with us at the table.
Thank you very much.
Because the sound is much better here.
Thank you very
So,
much.
Water.
whoops.
And I'm already disrupting.
So Chris, welcome this evening. You've spent quite a bit of time in Dover over the last week or so. And so I thought for the audience, if maybe you could just quickly give the television audience a little bit on your background, and then we'll go on to have a conversation and continue with the interview.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you again for having me this evening. It's a, as I was making my way up here, I couldn't help but reflect on how grateful I am to have made it this far in the process. So I very much appreciate it. My name is Chris Dwelly. I'm a Cape resident. I live in Mashpee with my wife and 8-month-old son and 10-year-old pug. I work in the town of Yarmouth, currently serving as the assistant town administrator there, where I have broad responsibilities covering the town budget, both operating and capital, overseeing human resources, responsible for labor relations, as well as being responsible for implementing and coordinating the town's strategic plan, as well as communications efforts. So it's a pretty broad-based role and responsibility, one that I very much appreciate. Before that, I spent 5 years with the City of Boston, serving as the Director of Performance Management, where I was the direct report to the mayor, responsible for overseeing the performance of all city departments and working with all of those departments as well as staff to help identify ways to better operate and the city as well as identify cost-saving opportunities. I have a great passion for municipal government. I remember it was my senior year of college, and I was taking an elective course in local government taught by a local town administrator. And I was working at the State House at the time, and through that course and through my experiences at the state, I realized that municipal government was really where I wanted to be professionally. And so I've made a concerted effort since that time to find jobs and work in jobs that allowed me to work in communities and help improve them as well as help serve the residents. So that's a little bit about me.
Well, thank you. So I've spent quite a bit of time with you, and so one of the questions that I have is your first day of work in Dover as town administrator. Have you thought of what that day may look like?
I have, yeah. It's a lot of introductions, a lot of writing everyone's names down so I can remember them and don't have to ask them what their names are again. But it really just to spend a lot of time meeting as many people as possible and jumping right in and getting to know the community, working with the board to understand what some of your immediate priorities are for the administrator, as well as, like I said, getting a sense of the departments and the divisions and all the staff here in town, as well as boards and committees. So just being as visible as possible.
So how do you envision getting to know our community and getting to understand the staff and their roles, within the townhouse and then the committees at large?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I like to do is I like to get out in the field, and I found that that's the best way to really get to know somebody, both personally and professionally, and it helps them get to know me, and it builds a good rapport and builds a lot of trust. And so very much like to, take ride-alongs with the police chief and the highway superintendent. And
I would like to do that too, especially if the lights
the
are
lights
on.
are on. But really to get out in the field, and that way, again, as I mentioned, it helps build the rapport and helps you get a sense of the staff. And I'd want to do the same thing with committees, be able to attend as many committee meetings and hearings as possible. To really get a sense of what's before them. Of course, do a lot of research and see what some of the most pressing issues are. But I find, always a face-to-face, just good conversation with folks really helps to get a sense of it helps build your familiarity with the individual and what their responsibilities are.
As a manager, do you consider yourself hands-on? A listener? How do you, for me as a manager, one of the hardest things has been is being comfortable delegating to those that work for me.
Right.
Because sometimes the way I do things, like I understand and I have comfort in, and the way individuals that report to me, their approach may be a little different. So
Right.
that causes some angst for me as a manager.
Sure.
So,
Understood.
Right. So what's your style?
Yeah. It's a little bit of both. What I like to do is I like to initially listen, and I like to learn. If someone approaches me and asks for direction or for assistance, I'm happy to oblige and help guide them and help give my opinion or my assessment. But what I like to do is I don't like to jump in and just kind of provide my thoughts and opinions. I think that can turn some people off, and especially for the board members, the committee members, the staff here who have been here with the community for a long time. They know their business certainly better than me and better than a lot of people. And so, to take the time to listen and to really understand and see where I can be of most support, I found in my past has been the most productive. But I also, a town administrator, certainly in a small town, but really a town administrator in any size organization needs to roll up their sleeves and be truly part of the team. They can't just manage from, from a perch, so to speak, and just say, here's my vision and here's what I want. You actually have to be there side by side, elbow to elbow, with the team getting work done. And that's truly how you're able to accomplish a lot, and it's truly how you build an effective team and get that buy-in and support from the staff as well.
And have you had many direct reports in your various roles?
I have, yeah. So in Yarmouth right now, I have no direct reports. I work with the entire town as my team. In the city of Boston, I had 14 direct reports. Before that, in other roles, I also had various numbers of direct reports. So I'm used to managing teams, I'm used to mentoring folks, I'm comfortable with identifying where someone may need some support, and I can gently approach and kind of lend an olive branch as to, hey, here's how I can help. And I think my background is also interesting in that while I've directly managed teams, as I mentioned, I've also indirectly managed individuals, and that's it takes a certain type of nuanced approach, especially for people that don't necessarily directly report to you. If you're trying to, let's say, work on a project, right, or get a certain deliverable, sometimes it takes a little bit of finesse to be able to get to an end product and to get to across the finish line for a particular project.
Floor's open.
All right.
I got one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure.
Oh, absolutely.
So Chris, I'd like you to talk me through how your various and sundry experiences prepare you for the town administrator job, because your career track is a little bit sort of different, I would think, than many.
Absolutely, yep.
So how do your experiences,
Oh, okay.
past experience, prepare you for this
Absolutely.
job?
Sorry, I thought you said that you're going to list some specific areas.
No.
He does have the list.
So generally speaking, I see the town of Dover like any other community, and you have your general day-to-day municipal needs, right, to keep the operation running, right? You have your budgeting, and you have your human resources, you have your labor relations, you have your constituent services and constituent relationships. Those are all things that I am directly responsible for in the town of Yarmouth now. So I not only set the direction, the long-term and short-term direction for those efforts, but I oversee the day-to-day to see those successfully executed upon. Prior to the town of Yarmouth, I worked, as I mentioned, as the Director of Performance Management. And what that really helped me do, that coupled with my time at the Collins Center, that gave me hands-on experience with municipal modernization and technology implementation. And that's the second area, along with your general, typical municipal day-to-day operations, that I see a desire line and an opportunity here in Dover. And so from that perspective, I bring both an ability to set a strategic plan, identify where technology doesn't fit, and then be able to build a roadmap to get to that implementation. So I like to, my collective work experience in these various locations has given me that solid foundational backbone. But I've also had unique experiences, as I mentioned, with the technology implementation that I think, is a perfect fit for the town of Dover, and it will allow me to get started running. You guys have, or Dover has, they saw David leave after 18 or 19 years here in the community, and you've also been without an assistant town administrator for some time. So I think what, my background and my experience is certainly beneficial to this community, whereas I can jump in, hit the ground running with a lot of those basic foundational things that need to get done, but that staff also needs support with, and then also start to build on the roadmap on some of these other modernization and technology implementations that the community desires.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I just ask a follow-up question, if you don't mind, about
You're the boss now.
Oh, well, I guess I can do whatever I want. Well, I don't want to be alone. In your-
That's never changes.
In your system implementations, how have those typically worked? Is it more of a team approach? Is it just you running a project? What in your mind are the keys to successful system implementation approaches?
It's always a team approach, and that is not just with technology implementations. That's really with anything we do in municipal government. It truly takes a village. No one person can get done what needs to get done in an organization, and so the team approach has been quite successful for me. I'll give you an example. I just recently led and oversaw the implementation of a strategic planning and project management software application in the town of Yarmouth. The application is intended to provide staff with a central tool to be able to coordinate and track their work amongst others in the organization.
Is it Smart Sheet by any chance?
It's not.
Okay.
It's not.
It's in Visi.
That's it. Yes, sir. Yep. But what's really nice about it is that it also comes with a public-facing dashboard, which is a great component. So not only can we internally get our work done, but then we're able to share progress with the public, which is a really neat feature. And so, working in conjunction with the board and some other staff, I led the development of what our requirements would look like. And that's an important facet in any type of implementation or operational change. You really need to understand what it is that you're trying to accomplish so that you can make sure that you have the right tool, or maybe you don't even need a tool, but that helps you identify truly what you need.
So how did you figure out that piece of the puzzle? How did you figure out what exactly was needed? Was it reaching out to different customers, stakeholders?
That's exactly it, right? And without having those conversations with department heads and staff, it's very difficult to roll out an application and say, hey, here's what we're going to use. And then, let's just say, hey, you hear back from staff and they say, well, this doesn't align with how I do my work and this isn't going to help me at all. And then you've spent all this time and money and effort implementing an application that is essentially useless. So those conversations with stakeholders are enormously critical and very important. They're timely, but it's what leads and makes for successful implementation.
Right, I think it also helps make the right decision about whether the software or the system is a good choice for what you're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely.
So John, I got one more then, okay?
By the way, this is the way it works, whether I'm sitting in the middle or whether I'm sitting on this side or that side.
Well, you already
This is-
elbows,
When I was in the middle, I get elbow on one side.
Listen, your right side is going to be healed.
Exactly.
John, if you need to take one to the team, I'll jump across the table
Thank you.
for you.
There's a lot of focus on the technology side.
Yes.
And I understand, I've dealt with that for a very long time. But the key to any successful organization, and this is going to get back to two different points. One is it's management and leadership of people. That comes with all the ideas about motivation, et cetera, on the positive side. And then there's the performance management side. And then, because of the way that the town is organized, and you touched on it a little earlier, influence is involved. So I'd like to know how your experiences as Director of Performance Management affects the assessment of people, and your ATA experience managing people. And then I'd like to understand how your political experiences early in your career sort of affect your political skills and your collaborative skills.
Absolutely. It's a great question. And so, Bob, you also raised a great point. So in my role as the Director of Performance Management, it was an interesting role, whereas I was responsible for many times evaluating and assessing people's performance, both individually and as an organization. So that was one facet of my role, and I'll speak to that. The other facet, though, is I oversaw a team whose responsibility was to be deployed and actually go out and help departments and divisions be able to do their jobs more efficiently and more quickly and make their lives easier. So it was kind of a dual opposing role, right? One day I was a good guy, and then one day I was a bad guy. And so the days where I was a bad guy, where we were reassessing people's performance, there were a couple of things that I learned through experience that really resonated with me and helped me understand the approach. The first is, if you're tasked or you have a sense that there's an area that may not be operating as efficiently as possible, you don't go right into the individuals involved or into that organization and say, something's amiss here, something's wrong, I want to take a look. I want to take a look. That throws people on the defensive, and it's not a great way to approach it. A better way to approach it is to be able to have a conversation about some of our shared goals for outcomes or outputs. Ask the individual or the staff involved before you even mention performance, hey, so what are some of the challenges, or what are some of the difficulties you face day to day in your work, to get a better sense of maybe what some of the issues are in the organization. So the approach, needs to be thoughtful, and it needs to be kind. And at the end of the day, you want to treat people, as human beings. And that should be with respect, and that should be with kindness, and with an open ear. On the ATA side, on managing folks, what I've found through experience, and this certainly resonates back in my other roles as well, is being someone who's truly attentive, vested, in a helpful and willing participant in furthering the mission or getting a particular task done, creates a lot of buy-in and a lot of goodwill. People know if you're not truly invested in what they're trying to say, or what some of their struggles or their challenges are, or what their day-to-day looks like. And so all of those things are important when in any organization, in order to be able to effectively both manage, set a direction, as well as lead people. And when it comes to leading, you want to be able to have a clear, articulate vision. Oftentimes, that takes a lot of buy-in from a lot of conversations with stakeholders to get buy-in and understanding. But you want to be able to cultivate that and work toward that collectively. And you also need to be able to identify, who are the key stakeholders that you need to involve on a particular project. And that leads into your last point on my political experiences. So I worked directly in the State House for many years. I worked in arguably one of the most political jobs, which was redistricting, which is a very interesting responsibility when you're tasked with realigning political districts. And so, what I've learned in my time there is that it's important to build consensus broadly beyond the community, with your neighboring partners, with your state legislators, with your federal representation, with all sorts of folks in all sorts of different walks in life, because you never know how they may be able to help your organization and your mission at the end of the day. And you never know when you may need something that's important to the community, and you're able to call on those individuals either for an ask or just for advice.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. So, thank you again for the time, for coming up, for the conversation on Saturday. It was, the first thing you said was it was your idea to go out of the office into the field.
Yes.
So when we did the ride around on Saturday, was that my idea, or was that you?
That was your idea. For the record, that was your idea.
Because I thought that was extremely helpful.
That was great.
And I really thought it was great to get the idea. My thinking was, let's go out and actually show you what this is all about. And then I realized after our conversation that you had been here the week before, and you did the walk around. Yep. That was great. So two parts of this. We talked about Dennis Yarmouth Regional School.
Yes.
We talked about Dover Sherburne Regional School, the similarities, the sort of the things, the challenges the towns face. So one of the things that we're focused on, not only education is one of the top priorities, and survey after survey comes back, Dover Sherburne is the #1 school system in the Commonwealth, and we take a great deal of pride in that. It's a big challenge for us. We've talked about the challenges at Dennis Yarmouth and the challenges that both towns face. So I'd ask you to talk a little bit about that, a little bit about sort of the regional school system, pluses and minuses that you see, some of the challenges and opportunities, and then about the open space. You know, you came up for you didn't tell me if the 10-year-old pug actually made the walk or with you or not, so I'd be interested to find out about that, because a lot of dog lovers in the room. It's a community filled with, you know, the love of open space, and we really take a great deal of pride in that, and that's something that's a big initiative. So if you would, just your impressions of Dover as we drove around and what you saw, and then the opportunities and the challenges we face in the environmental and all the challenges we talked about that you face down in the Cape.
Sure, absolutely. And I echo your sentiment, John. It was a great opportunity. I don't know if you noticed, but I was able to get a little bit of a tan while we were driving around. So there was an added.
Thank my kids for that. It was my kids' car.
An added benefit there. Yeah. So regional schools. We had a great conversation about it. Dennis and Yarmouth faces some challenges with our regional schools, but before I get into those, I want to speak to the positives, which are when you're able to combine forces or combine your efforts with your neighbors. There's economies of scale there, and I think at the end of the day, it benefits the educational institution. It benefits the children, where you're able to offer more opportunities for them, which I think is a great deal at a cost benefit, right, in a shared regional school district, whereas the cost would be much higher potentially, right, if you were a singular district. So that's a great benefit. One of the challenges that we face in my community is we have a regional agreement that dates back about 40 years now. And we have challenges in the assessment. So anything above your minimum mandatory contribution is based on a per pupil split. And that's not on foundation enrollment. That's just on your October enrollment in the seat. And so as Yarmouth's school children population has increased, sending more students to the district, and Dennis's school population has decreased, well, you need to make up that cost, right? And that cost is Yarmouth's allocation. And so one of the things that we've been looking at is we recognize that a regional school district is generally in the best interest of the students. And so how do we, as two towns, come together and work collaboratively to craft a fair and equitable regional agreement? I think it makes sense, right, that you'd want to revisit certain agreements over time, especially when things change, to be able to look at certain things and potentially adjust them. And so, one of the things that we've been working on a task force with Yarmouth and with Dennis, certain representatives, is there a way that we can make this more equitable from a capital standpoint, where we're not splitting capital on the student shift or the student allotment, but more on a 50-50 basis, right? Understanding that a school building essentially is going to be split, right, 50-50. A superintendent in that building, if you were to have your own, would be 100%. So why not split 50-50? And so those are some of the things that we're working on, but it's a challenge when you, for any community in any intermunicipal agreement, when you see massive shifts potentially that you haven't expected, that cause some financial strain. Especially, we have some other factors that make budgeting for us pretty tight every year. And so we're going now, it's actually today, we have our third school operating override in the same number of years on the ballot today. And that's a challenge for the community. Open space, yeah, I had a great walk with Greg from the Open Space Committee. It's an awesome thing that you guys do here. It's one of the things that draws me to Yarmouth is both the amount of open space, but also I see a commitment and a recognition that open space is critically important here in the community. I've read the last 20 years worth, each a decade, of master plans. And right out there at the outset, Dover is committed to our open space. And that's great, understanding that, because that helps you kind of shape your other priorities. So Charlie, about halfway through, I was like, oh, you know what, maybe I'll cut back. So I said, hey Greg, I'm gonna get going. Me and Charlie are gonna head back. So we made it halfway up Snow Hill, and then said goodbye to the group, and then we got out to the road, to the sidewalk, right to the little circle down there at the end, and Charlie at that point was laying down, so I picked him up and I brought him in. I felt so bad for him, but he's got a lot of energy and more energy than he thinks, so he's a great dog. But open space is a great benefit to communities. It's something worth preserving, but it brings up an interesting question as to other competing priorities in communities, right? Whether that be housing or economic development. And those are all things that collectively the community and the board and other boards and committees need to work on. And I think one of the things that's most helpful, which you already have in place, is a good master plan that helps guide that process, so you know what your priorities, are. I think I hit everyone.
Yeah, you did. Thank you. Yeah. Would you like to?
So I do have
Follow
a
along.
follow-up question to Bob's question. I didn't want to interrupt, to see what they do. So,
It's usually a lot worse. It's usually a lot worse.
so we talked about, how important it is, especially when you're implementing. Ooh, we have the ghost of Dover.
Don't we have what is
Dover
it?
Demon.
The Dover Demon, right. Yeah, but that's over on Farm
I saw that
Street.
online.
Oh yeah, there's a.
It is. Lives here. So we talked a little bit when implementing projects, how it's really, really important to get your stakeholders on board, to get, in this case, potentially your employees on board. There are occasions where you can't get somebody to get on board with a particular project. Either they just don't think it's going to work and they act a little bit as a deterrent. Have you dealt with situations like that? Have you had successes turning those people around?
Yeah, absolutely. So in that case, when there is hesitancy, or people, let's just say that just aren't believers, or I've done things this way and it's always worked successfully for me, why should I change? Once the commitment's made to move forward, it takes very much along the lines of some of the themes I've been emphasizing tonight about open and honest and fair communication. And so one of the things I've done is when people have been hesitant to make a change, whether it's operationally or really technology related, I've had a conversation with them to just get a sense of hey, what's your concern? And then we try to have a conversation about, what I try to do is I try to steer the conversation about how it can be a benefit to them. Truthfully, some people have said, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. So what I do is I have a direct conversation with them and I say, hey, this is the direction that we're heading. There's been a lot of stakeholder input. This is part of a plan, or this has been a mandate or a directive that has come down. My commitment to you, though, is to work with you to make sure that you have the resources and the appropriate training needed to make this a success for you. People appreciate that. I still try to take the angle about, you just have to trust me. At the end of the day, this will help and benefit you individually as well as the organization. And if you're successful in your implementation and you've done all those steps that I mentioned before about taking the time to truly understand, is this is this needed and will this be helpful to the organization, then you know that it will be, and it just takes time for people to come along.
Have you had a positive experience with it?
I have had positive experience. I've had people, that have come back and, they are very blunt and say, look, Chris, I didn't believe a word you were saying, or, it sounded like a bunch of nonsense, and frankly, I didn't want to do it, but I really appreciate that this has been able to help me do this. And I'll just give you a very quick example. We were rolling out reports and dashboards. So not only, have I implemented technology, but I've then taken that technology and leveraged the data that it collects for business intelligence, for performance management, Bob, that you mentioned. And one of the things that's really helpful to deploy to people as an asset are nice live real-time dashboards or reports in their inbox or through a system that they can go in and actually see how things are going, look at their workload. And I was able to, through that process, I was able to help create a custom dashboard, and I do this, I started to build one out today for an individual in a department to help her with her job. But to build out, here's information that you manually go in right now through the front end of the application and spend a lot of time going through, tallying out the numbers and putting them over where you need to for a grant application. I can just build you the report that takes care of that for you. And then they see, oh, I understand that there's value here. Maybe not the initial rollout of it, but now I see how this can benefit the broader organization, myself included.
So in the town, and not just the town of Dover, but in all towns, there are different types of professionals. Like the example you gave, I could see work really well for somebody in the office. But then you have, somebody in Park and Rec, on the cemetery commission, the individual that takes care of those grounds. So that person needs a different kind, I guess, of mentoring, data input. Do you have some experiences with those types of individuals that you can talk to us about?
I do, yeah. Two scenarios I'll give you. One is for our planning and zoning folks in our inspectional services in the city of Boston. They do a lot of field work and they do a lot of office work, right? They go out and they do inspections and they make sure that you're up to code and compliant. And so what they always did was, they had their yellow sheets that they've been using and they write all their stuff down and they come back to the office. Well, they're responsible then for entering that all into the system. And that takes a lot of time. Why not just provide them with tablets out in the field to help them be able to take care of that on site? Cuts down on them having to go back to the office, spend that time to re-enter information that they've already written down. And it provides them with other resources on that tablet if they need to go back and, let's say, reference a code or look back at a permit history to be able to have more effective conversations with a permit holder or someone who pulled a permit out in the field. Also in the city of Boston, I worked with a team, and this was a really great project. I was able to share it with Bob. What we did is, there was a lot of technology in the city, a lot of applications, and what we were looking at is how do we best leverage these, right, to get the most value out of them. And what we did is we ended up creating these field-based tablet dashboards for our fire department, so that when they were en route to a call, they could call up the building history for the location, the permit history, if there were any hazardous materials there, if there was anyone who had, let's say, a disability that they needed to be aware of. And what that did is that provided them with some really helpful information before they go and run into a burning building per se. And that's a great value. It's not necessarily performance related. It's just a way to be able to leverage existing tools to help, what I like to think, keep, the men and women of the fire department safer in their jobs. And
Assuming
that was
the
something I'm
driver
proud
wasn't
of.
looking.
No, definitely.
He was texting.
He was texting. He was on the phone.
But that's a great, way to just be able to identify, understand what you have in front of you, understand a potential problem through conversations with the chief and others, and say, I think I may have a solution for you.
Have you ever gotten resistance from people out in the field using technology? Because it's different from, what they what they're used to.
Yeah, I have. And, I'd go back to I'll take the time, I'll take the approach, let me show you how this can be of value. Here is a quick training guide, both on the tablet as well as a piece of paper that you can have. Some would still resist or be hesitant to use the tablet, and it comes down to, is this going to be mandatory from a time, cost, benefit, or is it okay for this individual to come back to the office and enter that information in? And I think, you take those situations individually.
No, I think when you and I we talked about how sometimes there are good intentions with technology, but
Right.
they go bad. And you gave me the example of that individual in the North End that took 200 pictures a day of things that needed to be repaired.
I think it was more than 200, yeah.
So in terms of adoption of technology, I know plenty of doctors and lawyers who haven't graciously accepted new technology in their practices. So that's just the human, one of the human conditions that we all have. So I want to go back to, I really don't want to emphasize the technology part so much. There are two things that caught my eye. One, how many people, you performed, according to the resume, you performed a lot of duties as the assistant town administrator. How many employees?
Total in the organization,
Yeah.
there was over 300 full and part-time people that work for the town, schools excluded.
In Yarmouth?
In
In the
Yarmouth.
town hall?
So two things.
No, there's many different buildings throughout.
Right,
Yeah.
The greater town.
The greater town, yeah.
So we as a society are going through a huge transformation, and technology is probably the driving component. And I always laugh and say anything that existed before the iPhone is obsolete. Anything that, comes after the iPhone is probably current. That requires a heck of a lot of effort and time devoted to ongoing training. How do you guys handle that, of people? How do you guys handle that in Yarmouth?
So the training is, training is, I would say, arguably one of the most important facets of any implementation, because if people don't know how to use it, they're more likely to resist, use it incorrectly, or just not use it at all. And so it's unique in the system so that there are many different folks in Yarmouth who oversee and roll out and implement technology. And what I found, and I'll speak to that project management application that I mentioned that I rolled out, that I directly oversaw. What I found to be most important is to break down the different areas of your implementation and of your rollout, and then build your training around that. Go out to the individuals at their location, provide them with an initial training, get feedback, give them some time to test, to be able to provide you with feedback on, I ran into this issue, this doesn't seem to be working correctly, or I don't know how to do this, and you iterate and roll that into what is fine and what will finally be what is a comprehensive training document for folks to be able to use as a resource moving forward. A lot of these applications come with lengthy documentation, online training, but what I've found is that people will give about a minute or so to look for what they're trying to do, and then their eyes will glaze over because there's so much information. So it's important on us and our teams to be able to synthesize that into really the finite, most important points, so that people know it's a quick reference guide that they can go and they can hit. Training takes a lot of time, and I've found that the team approach, very much like implementation to training, is also very helpful. So for the project management and strategic planning application, I had a team, a fantastic team that both helped with the rollout, but really emphasized the training. And they divided and they conquered. And they did a great job And this was rolled out to the entire organization, every department, every division, and you're able to get that feedback more quickly, train people more quickly, and
So
just...
is this a team of outside consultants?
Nope.
No,
It was internal
people?
team, yeah. So what I did is I put the ask out while I was having conversations with initial stakeholders on, hey, here's the initial idea of what we're thinking to bring into town. What are your thoughts? What are your feedback? What's your feedback? What are some of the things that you think you would benefit from? Is this even a good idea or is this a bad idea? And through those conversations, I was able to say, I'd like to build a team to be able to roll this out, both from just people power, because I can't do it all myself, but to also be able to get that feedback from your team as you're implementing this, so that they know that, hey, you know what, I do all my invoice processing, and you know what, this isn't going to work right. We should talk to the vendor about adjusting this, and that's important. I found that the team approach is just, it's a great approach to be able to get things done.
My last question. You talked about implementing the town's first communications plan.
Yes.
What was that all about? What is that all about?
So the communications plan, it's a broad-based plan, and it's made up of a lot of stakeholders, but it's really to assess what's out there and how we can leverage that technology to be able to accomplish the goals that we have as a community. So one of the goals of the board in Yarmouth is to improve communication broadly across the organization and with the public. And so one of the things that we heard, that we hear often is, well, I don't know when events are, or I don't know what, the project status on this particular project is. I sometimes hear about things too late. And so what I did is I looked at everything that is out there, what other communities are doing, what the town is doing to build upon, and put that into a plan. So some of the things that we've been able to do is I've rolled out social media, Twitter and Facebook for the town accounts that people are able to, in the organization, produce and share their content on a regular basis. So you're able to get information out there quick, whereas sometimes with a traditional paper or maybe even a website, people aren't necessarily going to go to they're more likely to have a social media account. They'll probably give you a follow. Now that's a great way to be able to push information to them. Worked very closely with our IT director to start moving our video media onto YouTube and starting producing short videos as another medium to be able to convey and share information. So one of the things that the board wanted to do, that we talked about doing this year, was communicating and educating the public on the town meeting warrant before town meeting. And so what we did a few things. We put explanations in the warrant, just regular kind of general terms of, hey, here's what this article is about, so that people would know. We also created short videos that explained those. So we'd have, a committee member or the DPW director on site at, the water department saying, hey, here's what we're looking for in capital. And, it's a unique way to be able to convey that message and potentially get interest from folks. So we've been working on that. And then, the other piece is certainly a website redesign. Are we serving up information that people are looking for on our website in a user-friendly way, or is it really difficult for them to find? So I'm currently undertaking that process now, put together a team to do that as well. And the goal is really, as I mentioned, bring the information out to the homepage where people can see it, so that they don't have to dig through. I think in a conversation with Robin, I mentioned, if you have to go, government websites are usually set up as how governments operate, but a lot of, Chris on the street doesn't necessarily know how the police department, right, is set up here. So put that information to them so that they don't have to dig through a web page, because after a few clicks, you're probably going to lose them and they're not going to use your website. So there's also, templates on presentations and social media templates, so that there's consistency with fonts and colors, so that if you saw something on our website or on our local access channel or on our Facebook, just with the colors and the consistent font, without even seeing, you'd probably know, hey, I think that's from the town of Yarmouth. and that helps kind of like build a brand so people know. But I put that all together, worked with a lot of great people, and now collectively we're working on parsing that out and implementing it.
So we focused a lot on communication with, on websites. What about those individuals in the town that are uncomfortable with technology? Because there are some of those. How do you get the same information out to them?
Yeah, and so that's a very great point. And so it's leveraging your existing resources, right? So local access here is a great example. How do we make sure our government programming, if you're in charge of the government programming or the public access, is robust and up to date, and so that we're getting board meetings and other committee meetings on constant rotation, that we have a calendar of events regularly up there so that the information isn't stale, so that people who are accustomed to, viewing a meeting like tonight on local access, that they're able to do that via that means. Working very closely with your local community newspapers, and ensuring that they're getting a steady stream of information. I constantly reach out with, a project or an update to local press, and they're usually always, pretty
They're
interested.
They welcome it.
This is great.
Hunting for content.
Especially if it's in a press release form, you've done the job for them. And then, there's other things. We don't have a town newsletter. Our senior services does. Our police department does, but there's no, town newsletter that you could go into town hall and pick up beyond an annual report. But that's another great idea where people like to come in, you have some information, you put a nice rack there, and you have it there for people who may not, have a Twitter account or want to go on the
They like to
website.
visit Felicians.
Open for business.
Yeah, the clerk of everything. So that's my last question for you, Chris, was a culmination of the things that you just, sort of the things you mentioned. We've talked about performance management, smart cities. We had that conversation about your presentation in Toronto. We talked about the article in the Wall Street Journal just on Thursday was about Estonia and how you can register to vote and vote online.
Right there.
And then all the juxtaposition of the technology things that we've talked about, the technology aspects that the town needs, all of these really cool ideas about smart cities and integration, everything that you've done, all the things you've talked about. Yet, at the end of the day, we're a real small town. We don't have an unlimited amount of money, more money than most, more money than some people would like us to have, but we are trying to be very focused. We want to be efficient. We want to do all of the things that we've talked about tonight and that you've gone through with Mrs. Hoffman and Mrs. Lisbon in the process, and again, you've done a phenomenal job with that to get to this point.
Appreciate that.
So the part that is sort of the culmination for us as the selectmen is we need to make sure we don't lose the high touch.
Yep.
We want to have the Dover way be the way of a high touch, empathetic approach to all of our constituents. As Mrs. Hunter alluded to, some may not be willing or some may not be capable or even ready for the high-tech smart city approach. So that's going to be a challenge, and we're going to have to figure a way to cross that chasm, to keep the high-touch Dover way and to integrate the smart city. Any thoughts on that?
I do have some thoughts, and that's a really great perspective, and I have a background in it, and I think that could, some people may think that this is your real passion, right? Is a smart city, that every community should be a smart city, but my experience has shown me that that's not the case. What you want to do is you want to find small wins that help the organization. The last thing I would do as administrator is come in here and just say, we're going to implement a new finance ERP system, a new CRM, we're rolling out a Twitter, we're rolling out project management software. People say, well, forget this guy, right? You need to understand what benefits the community, what the community wants, what benefits the staff, the boards, the collective here, right? The entire town, what makes sense for the town. If at the end of the day, we didn't do any of it, well, that would be okay. If that's what the community wants, if that's the board's direction, if we feel as though It's not maybe necessary. I think that's okay. There's some small tweaks that could be made. There are some low-touch implementations, modernizations that could happen, small things. Robin and I talked about, just, putting up a screen in a conference room so that people don't have to, put papers in. That's low touch, doesn't cost a lot, but I think a lot of people would benefit from it, right? So that you have it digitally right there.
Mona's going to put the procurement in.
In my first conversation with Robin, I had mentioned this and I had emphasized this, that I take a slow walk when it comes to implementing this stuff because I have the hands-on experience knowing what's gone wrong and what's gone right, and I've seen technology implemented that was rushed, that was flashy, that would be a good splash, that, oh, hey, look, Dover's doing this, and guess what? You don't use it. And then you spent all this money and it just sits on the shelf until your license expires and then it goes away. It's a waste of time, it's a waste of resources, and it's unnecessary. So it's important to understand through consensus where the town wants to head. And I'm the individual that can help build that consensus and then actually roll that out. And on roll that out and how to do it, a couple of points I want to mention. One is look for money wherever you can get money. Look for resources wherever you can get resources. That project management application, found a grant for it. Looking into optimizing how we produce our budget book every year to reduce the amount of time that it takes staff to run all reports, collate everything, put a binder together, and I found a way to do that. It's a small cost, but found a grant for it, and just heard yesterday that 99.9% sure we're going to get it. So that's one area that's very helpful and really needed. The other that's interesting, and I think Dover's uniquely positioned, and it's something I've leveraged certainly in Boston as well as in Yarmouth, is creating fellowship or internship opportunities to help with these projects. And it doesn't even have to really be technology related. It can be anything that the town needs, just a supplement to the town staff, knowing that everybody is at 110% already. And with the close proximity to the universities, you can really create some great opportunities for folks to come in at no cost or very low cost, and you get some really bright individuals to come in and to be able to work and get some of the, I'd say maybe like the low-hanging fruit stuff that people just unfortunately in the course of business day to day with all their other work just aren't able to get to. And it's great having those resources come in. And the added benefit, I think, is that, we see a lot that, over the next 10 years, it's going to be increasingly hard to find financial professionals, and that people don't necessarily want to come and work for government. And this is another way to be able to attract those individuals to the organization. It's almost like a trial. They have a good experience. You may build their interest in government, or maybe they're a great candidate for an upcoming retirement or some other slot in the organization. So that's really helpful. The other piece I just want to mention, as you look to modernization, or as you look to just, how can technology support the town, deliver services to the public? It's important having someone that can really understand what it is that you should be looking at, someone that can have those conversations with vendors to ensure that you're getting really what you want and you're not over-modularizing. Come in and say, hey, we have a solution that will fix all your ailments here. You probably only need 20% of it. And that's very important, and that helps reduce costs from the study phase of, what are we going to look at, to the purchase phase, to the implementation and the follow-up training phase.
Great, thank you.
So we've talked a lot about technology and we're running out of time, but ultimately the most important phase to this town is the citizens, that making sure that as best as we possibly can, we respond to them and give them what they're looking for. Have you had a lot of interaction? Do you have a lot of interaction with the citizens in Yarmouth?
I do, yeah, absolutely.
Never coming to tell you what a great job you did, right?
Surprisingly, actually, some, or they'll start out and say, "Oh, hey, great job on this," but by the way, I need this, or I have a
That's the way to
grievance.
do it, right? That's it. Oh, great job, but, what about this guy?
At the end of the day, and this goes into the last question, government will always be a people business, regardless, no matter what. The people in the organization are what make the organization run. The residents are the people that we're here to serve. I don't take that lightly. I take that responsibility very seriously. We are, at the end of the day, here to deliver a service. We are stewards of taxpayer funds, and it's important that they are getting the best possible services for those. I like to have conversations with folks. I always will take the time, if I'm in the middle of something and I hear someone, talking outside of the office about, oh, hey, maybe they have a question about something and I know I can answer, I'll pop out just so I can say hello, have that conversation and that rapport. And what I find at the end of the day, even all this technology aside, is that's the stuff that resonates with people and that's what they care about. And the next time they see me, or they'll, tell someone else, I appreciated that, Chris took the time to be able to answer my question or help me out with this particular thing. It will always be a people business, and frankly, that is the utmost importance.
It's a people business in more ways than one. It's
Absolutely.
the citizens and then the staff.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Chris, thank you.
All right.
Very,
So
very much.
in 1 minute, do you want to tell us why you're the man for this job?
I think I'm the right individual at the right time for a few reasons. One, as I mentioned, the town lost or saw a long-term administrator retire. And that can be, that's a new experience for folks, right? They've been with an individual for 18 or 19 years, a long time. They've built relationships. They got to understand, how they work, what people's quirks are, and, and then without an assistant. And so what's important is to have someone to be able to come in. That's jarring. And Yarmouth was similar, whereas the town was without both an administrator and an assistant for close to 2 years. And people wait, right? And people want to be able to have someone come in and be that support, be able to hit the ground running. And I think that's what's most critical, is that I have that broad-based experience where I can come in and the train can keep running, and I can also provide on time, but ahead of time.
Switzerland.
But I can also be a support for staff, because as I mentioned earlier, that is critically important. Today I was working with someone who said, "Oh, hey Chris, I didn't want to bother you with this, and I mentioned to her, because I was entering some information in the system. I will do anything that's ever needed to help out the organization. There's no job that's beneath me, and I think that's important. And I have the background and the experience to be able to come in, help support the organization, work very closely with the board, with you, to be able to set the direction on both kind of the short-term and the longer-term things that the community wants to accomplish. And I'm able to do both of those simultaneously and quite well.
Do you see yourself here in 5 years?
I am looking for a community where I can put down some roots. I have an 8-month-old son, as I mentioned, and my wife's
And a 10-year-old
a 10-year-old pug. My wife's got a 4-hour commute. She still works in the city round trip. Our family, our friends are located in this area, and as I think of my family and I think of my son James, and it'd be great to build roots in a great community with a great school system, raise a family, and just become a part of the community. I'm in it for the long haul. I also mentioned to you, Robin, there's a lot of these jobs that are open, 2 of which are your neighbors in Westwood and Dedham. Dover is the only one that I've applied for. It's the only one I'm interested in, because I saw what you guys were looking for, and I knew that I could successfully execute on that job, do a great job. The community's been great, and I think one thing that I'd like to close on is, I thought it was a great fit. I've enjoyed the community, got a great school system. It's the quintessential New England, right? It's just a beautiful community. But the time that you guys have spent and put into this process, and which has allowed me to really get to know you on a personal basis, the town staff and the boards and committees, everyone has been so welcoming. Every meeting I've gone into, people have been joking around, and in a good way, right? You get a sense that it truly is a team here, and there's a great sense of camaraderie, and I'd be honored to be a part of it.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much.
Yep, thank you, Chris.
Thank you for coming in. That's a good job.
Appreciate it.
Thank you,
Guys,
Chris.
thanks again, I appreciate it.
Thanks, Tom. Be good.
Appreciate it.
Do you know your way out?
I do.
Not gonna get.
Safe ride back.
Thanks again, guys.
See, I would have been halfway home before I could.
As long as you have your glasses, right?
No, I can drive with that. I just can't see what I write.
Do we have any other items that we can?
We have
We have to
one
appoint
appointment.
I can have an appointment.
Yeah.
Okay, why don't we do that?
Okay. So we had a resignation back at the end of April on the Carroll Project Committee. Lauren Brodsky moved to Medfield. And so we have a woman who has stepped up for a role on the Carroll Project Committee. Her name is Leslie Godfrey Schutte, S-C-H-U-T-T-E. She's a UMass Amherst grad. The note says, with degrees in comparative lit and French, but somehow she wound up in the financial services industry.
So she can translate the
She could
stuff
into-
to French.
Yeah, she can do that. And her position,
We're making use of time.
hey, so she is, her last role was as national account manager, managing large clients.
Okay.
3 kids. Her oldest is a freshman at DS. He has a middle school guy at Rivers, and the youngest daughter is at Chickering. So both Ford and I have talked with her at length. We think she'd be a great fit, particularly since we're in the marketing side.
Okay.
So I would like to nominate Leslie Godfrey Schutte for an appointment to the Carroll Project Committee.
I would second that.
Second that.
A motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie.
Leslie, yes.
So who put together that website thing? Was that Lauren?
That was the...
Oh, no, that was Aaron.
That was Aaron, but Aaron and there were a couple of other people.
Okay.
It's real, so back to team, it was a team effort, and I thought it was terrific.
I thought it was really good too. Welcome, Jeremy.
Thank you.
I apologize for running late, but some of us talk too much, I won't.
If there were a mirror right in front of her. Exactly.
So again, this is for the sake of the audience watching at home with their glass of wine. Again, I'm just reminding everybody that Jeremy Marset is the second candidate for the open town administrator position. And so Jeremy, we ask that you just give them maybe a 2-minute overview
Sure.
of you, your experience, and then we'll ask some questions. Ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Super. Very well
That's
done.
great. Well, thank you. And I wanted to, thank everyone that I've met over the last couple weeks. Really enjoyed the conversations I've had with the town staff, with you as the selectmen, the various boards and committees. Really enjoyed, getting, a bit of insight, a little more insight into Dover. Would really look forward to diving a whole lot deeper. Would really enjoy that opportunity. So I'm an experienced, eager municipal leader. I have a background in the public and private sector in different leadership roles. I'm certainly not bound by past practice and look to improve and instill a climate of continuous improvement in the organizations that I'm a part of. The last 5 years, I've been the Director of Public Works for the town of Natick. I have a staff of 85 folks in 7 different divisions. It's a very broad range of services that we offer in the 7 different divisions. We've got, everyone from the sanitation drivers to professional engineers to administrative support staff. We oversee all of the municipal energy for the town. It's all aggregated together. Budget of about $23 million per year annual operating budget. We have many capital projects, a 5-year capital plan that I'm responsible for. Prior to that, I was with the town of Framingham as the Assistant Director of Public Works and Town Engineer. So I was able to it was kind of interesting to see the differences and compare and contrast between the 2 neighboring communities, how they now Framingham's a city, so that they've actually morphed even farther. I've been quite active in the local community that I live in, a neighboring community to Dover. For the last 15 years or so, I've been on the Board of Water and Sewerage. I've been the chairman of that for some time, currently on the warrant committee.
So I think you should share with John and Bob how that came to be. Medfield has one very good idea.
So yeah, it was the same year that we moved in to the town, so open town meeting. Reading through the warrant book, the recommendations warrant book, as town meeting's going on, and the last page was a volunteer form. Do you have these skills? Check, check, check. Was it from Jerry? Fill this out and drop it off. There was a box on the way out. So I said, sure, okay. So my background, I have a Bachelor's of Science in Engineering, and I was at the time, I was working for a private engineering firm, consulting. And so, I dropped my name in the box, and a week later, I got a call. They called me up and, hey, want to come home? We need some help on the Board of Water and Sewerage. So I was kind of an adjunct for a bit. And then, I got up to leave the room for a second, came back, and I was a member, and the same thing happened when I was the chair. It's like, well, you weren't there, so we voted you as the chair.
Don't ever leave. You
gotta stay.
So Jeremy, 5 or 6 years ago, I was invited to participate in the Capital Budget Committee by a certain someone
Volunteered.
for a certain woman who's in this office. And, I said, okay, great. I had been on school committee and I took a couple of years off, and so
He was in retirement.
I was in retirement, yeah. So I showed up, and, we had the votes and all this other stuff, and then there was the point of nominating the chairman. Mm-hmm. And the other several members of that committee stepped one step back.
Sure.
And I was standing right up in front. And I became the chairman of the Capital Budget Committee. And I still harbor evil feelings about the people responsible. Happens.
A lot of different ways, but similar results.
But I just like the idea of at the back of the blue book, we had a sign-up form. Just another way to try to get people involved.
So, Jeremy, the first order of business tonight was to reorganize, to create this year's committee, which Mrs. Andrew became the chair of.
Wonderful.
So,
congratulations.
So you notice that Bob and I moved our chairs away.
So you both stepped back and Robin was forward.
Thank you.
Yeah, typical all of last year. I was in the middle. We just got kicked on either side. So thank you. And as I said to you when we met on Saturday, you did an exceptional job to get to this point. And
thank you.
So congratulations on that part. And with both Mrs. Hoffman and Mrs. Lisbon and all of the members of the committee, we thank them first and foremost, and then begin by thanking you for being here and getting to this point.
Well, thank you. It's very honored to be here and humbled, and really excited about the opportunity, should I be chosen, be the lucky one. It's a wonderful community. You have many wonderful things that, the rural character of the community, being a steward and protecting that. I see that your town administrator being, an advocate and a steward towards that. Your strong schools, your enviable financial position that really sets Dover up in a position to invest in itself in a really thoughtful way. Get some neat opportunities with the rail trail and the Carroll Community Center. Really some fun stuff, some challenges that are really opportunities, and really will help shape the future of your community. And that's exciting.
When, would you mind?
You can go ahead, I'll go next.
No.
I will be accommodating.
Sarcasm is your number one.
Wow, John, wow.
Wow, yeah, wow. So when we had our walk around on Saturday, which I really appreciated, I thought it was really nice just to get out.
Really nice day.
Get out. It was a really nice day.
Saturday was a nice day.
And we got to walk around and just sort of get you were able to give me your sort of feel for the town and living as you do close by, your perspective of the town of Dover was enlightening. So I think that is where I would like to start. You live close by. Your wife lived in the town at one point, and you mentioned our challenges and our opportunities. We've talked a lot about that, and I'm probably sure you've heard a lot about how our focus as a town, education, which you mentioned, open space, which you mentioned, and Medfield has those same challenges.
Certainly.
So I just like your perspective as to how to keep those two competing interests. Which one? I don't know. I don't know if it matters which one you think is the most or the least, or I'm not trying to.
Should the schools and open space?
Schools and open space, and to try. I'd like your perspective from being in Medfield to see what Dover needs to do to maintain its excellence in schools and maintain the excellence in the open space and all the things that we talked about as we walked around.
Certainly. Dover is in a great position as far, regionally, demographically. It's a desirable location. And there are certainly development pressures out there with, requirements for affordable housing, 40B. That was, in the case of Medfield, an issue that came up really in the highlight, in the front, right in the front, with a large project that was proposed, right off of a main road in town, way out of scale for the community. Just yes, it could be done by the 40B regulations, which go around local zoning, which in my view is a flaw in the plan, but. That really put the spotlight on it, and Medfield did not at the time have a housing production plan. It had kind of had a committee that had just kind of dissolved, if you will. It was there, but not very active. That really energized many folks, and so much so that its local representatives became involved, and a lot of lobbying and working with the developer, but in the end, the project was not approved. It went to the state reviews it, and even though they were looking to go forward with it, it was not approved, and it ended up lapsing. So what Medfield did was very quickly put together a housing production plan, and thoughtfully looked at what they could do to then start going towards their goal. So that was an approach they could take given their situation. Dover with the infrastructure that it has or does not have, that does help sort of control what sorts of development and the density that could be done. So that's certainly one of the mechanisms that's been used to maintain the the rural character, the country feel of Dover, if you will. Schools, your school's in a great place. It's
And I would like to say, I feel like we cannot take responsibility for the school system, personally. It's the school administration and the...
certainly.
Teachers.
Teachers and the...
Support
parents,
staff,
right.
parents,
But
students
your role
themselves.
here is to support the needs they may have by way of capital, allocate, having the budget and the finances available to support the needs of the schools. I think the regional coalition with Sherburne, helps you to leverage both communities there. So, having that relationship, certainly has created the great school system that you have.
So, what we're trying to get an understanding, so I'm sure you feel very comfortable as head of the DPW and the town administrator in Dover, or any town administrator, is a much broader position. So if you were to be given the job, how would you, coming into town hall, how would you begin to try and understand what goes on in the town, what the employees are responsible for? What would be your approach?
Well, certainly my approach would be to listen. I mean, I think that is really, listen. Gain an understanding and appreciation for all the great works that are done here in the town. Get an appreciation for what are some of their challenges, what are their stresses, what are things that are obstacles for them to improve or to be more efficient or to provide additional service to residents. What are those obstacles? What can we do to take those down? I think as a Public Works Director, we do get exposed to a broad range of things. So, we have daily interactions with the public. We have curbside sanitation collections with town crew. So we have very, very continual interactions with folks. We go into folks' homes to help with their water meters. I've certainly been exposed to a broad range of human resources issues and challenges and decisions. And so I bring that experience and that wisdom with me. 85 individuals is, there's a bunch of different characters and personalities, and they're all have their skills and strengths, and they're all fun in their own way. So, but I think it's coming in with an open mind, coming in with some perspective. I think it's nice to come in and not have done this role as a town administrator. I can come in and look at it from a new perspective. I have a strong history of successfully implementing change organizationally or procedurally, working with staff or offices that may have not have wanted that change, but working with them to understand the reasons for it or to get their buy-in, and they become an owner of it and the champion to make that change.
What do you think the key to a successful implementation is, or redesign of the process?
Sure. Well, I mean, you've got a great opportunity here in that, information technology, it's a tool. It's a tool just like a shovel, if you will, is a tool. You use the shovel upside down, it's not going to work well. So,
Greg?
So, it's...
He has an old tractor.
You're not going to get the rock out of the ground with a shovel upside down. So there's a lot of opportunity for, there's some basics that appear to need to be, undertaken here in Dover as far as the information technology infrastructure would be some hardware improvement. Hearing from the staff, they're not even sure what versions of different, like Excel software they have, and they can't share a spreadsheet. That's pretty fundamental that, certainly should be fixed fairly quickly, and there are tools to do that quickly and efficiently. You can quickly get an inventory of all the infrastructure and hardware and software by running scans using and doing that. But it's really an opportunity when you're looking at what technology you might want to use to look at how you're doing things. Look at the procedure. Do you still need to do that this way? Do you need to have this paper document? Can it become paperless? Is there a need for this paper? Can you minimize it some way? I've done projects in the past as a town engineer in Framingham, hundreds and hundreds of years of old paper plans and records in terrible shape, and we scanned them all and, did some OCR, so you can search them and categorize them and, made some of those available online for folks. But, any kind of, it's a tool, and there's a software out there for everything. Multiple versions of the software, and the vendors will say that it can do everything. And a lot of them will do everything, but some things well and some things not well, and so sometimes things have to give. But it really is, the user of that, either whether it be the shovel or the software, who's using it? Is it the right handle? Is it the right length shovel? Is it the right software? Is it the right keyboard? Anything, working with those that are going to be using it, and making them involved from the start. Hey, this is a tool for you. What would be helpful for you in this tool? What will help you to do your job better and more efficiently, or add some service for the public? Well, how can we respond quicker to this records request, or how can we respond quicker to this, looking for this tax information, or how can we make it more convenient for the residents to pay a bill? Can they do that remotely? Can they do it quicker when they come in? Can they have different methods of payment? How can we just make that experience, current, modern, up to date, and efficient?
For those who want it that way. Color.
Yes, and that's the thing with technology. I mean, not everybody adopts technology. Not everybody has a smartphone. Not everybody's on Facebook. There's the traditional media is still, there's still a need for that, for communication. So, message boards or flyers available at the transfer station, or just being out there, going to different events, having an open house. In Natick, we do, was twice a year, now it's once a year, but we have a Citizens Academy where it's a larger community, and so there's a class. We try to get people that maybe want to be volunteers, but they're not sure. They want to learn more about local government and what does Dover do, and how does Dover do it, and how can I become involved? I'm not sure. So it's a class. It's a Citizens Academy, and it's over a series of nights, and they visit different departments, and they tell them and what they do, or take them on a tour of a facility, and oftentimes people leaving that class at Public Works or at the police department, or, geez, I didn't realize all that you do. Wow, what a challenge. What about this? Have you thought of this? And we get ideas back from them too, which is great. We've thought of a lot of those ideas, or maybe not, but they're all great ideas, and it's just you getting that different perspective is great. And they feel involved in the community. They get a little more ownership in it. It's like, wow, that truck, I'm proud of that truck. That's a Natick truck. That's a Dover truck. That plows my street. That's great.
So Jeremy, I'd like to know, I mean, you have a relatively long career and accomplished a lot of stuff. So of the things that you have done in the past, what are the ones that you found or find or think are most relevant and most important to help you do the job of town administrator in Dover?
Sure. Well, I'm thinking of about 5 years ago when I began my work as the Public Works Director in Natick. So to set that up a little bit, about a year prior, there was a work zone fatality. One of the Public Works employees was fatally killed in an excavation. They had a long-time Public Works Director for 20, 30 years that had retired about a year before that. There was about a year's length of a director, and he then moved on to be promoted within the community. They hired another Public Works Director who was there for 2 months, was not the right fit for the community. There was, morale was super low, and people came forward to the town administration and said, this is not not great. So, they went out to do a search again, and I was fortunate enough to be selected as the Public Works Director. One of the individuals that also went for the position was the current Deputy Director of Public Works, the Equipment Maintenance Supervisor. Again, had been there for many years. So I stepped into that role with, morale, very poor morale. The facility was slated for some reconstructions. I mean, it was a mess. It was a mess culturally, physically. When I walked into my office that first day, there was nothing in it because that prior director that was there for 2 months got rid of everything. He either gave the records to subordinates or threw it out. And then there was a water leak and it flooded everything. So walked into it with a empty office. Where are these safety manuals? Where are the you name it? Where is all this stuff? During that year, there was a construction project to renovate the building, add offices upstairs. There was locker rooms were upstairs, and about a week into it, I remember walking upstairs, and it's the women's locker room. There's a padlock on it, and what? Okay, we're going to be renovating this office. We're going to have more folks in this office. So anyway, somebody had kind of taken over that as their own. That was their personal space. So we addressed that, but over the course of time, getting to know everyone. I made a point to get out and try to do as many different things that the department does. And believe me, it's a long day on the back of a trash packer, and it gave me a really good appreciation of what that is all about. I have a commercial driver's license, so I went out and I'll plow on occasion. They don't like me to do that. I tend to damage things and hit mailboxes. I'm not very good at it.
Robin wants to drive the fire truck, so they don't let her. So.
Yeah.
No, just the little ATV.
The horn. But getting out and doing those things, with the staff, being involved with the staff, them seeing me out in the middle of the night in the cold in a snowstorm, trying to plow, they appreciated it. And coming from an engineering background, so we have an engineering office as well. I was able to lend some of my insights there from being a town engineer in Framingham. How we could improve the permit system. So they were using an access database to track permits. So we migrated to something that we could share information on. We could upload plans to. We could, instead of having written approvals, we could have it circulated electronically. And they loved it. Updated construction standards, worked with them on that. It's a relatively flat organization, Department of Public Works in Natick. The division supervisor are all one level, and then there's me, which I think it works quite well. And we have a bi-weekly staff meeting every other week, and it's a staff gathering, and more of a kind of a round table discussion, and I'll talk about things that they're up to or things they need, and kind of collaborate together. They give me feedback. I'm able to pass some things on to them. It's more of a discussion than me just reporting out. But anyway, going from where we started to have no work order system, literally not even a paper work order system. The culture did not have a work order system. So developing that, why do we need to do this? Why do we need to track assets and how we're utilizing funds and purchase orders, and from going from that culture to where we are now with electronic work orders, with some tablets in the field that we use when we do water main flushing, or an inventory of the street trees and their risk and their value, and residents can go on the town website and actually see the trees tagged. There's a little tag and a number, and they can, what is that tree? That's great, and look it up find out what, how old it may be and the value of it. And behind the scenes, my tree warden knows what the risk is, and say that there's an accident, there's a value. Maybe there's some insurance implications, but I've been happy to promote some of my supervisors to win national awards, get that recognition that they deserve. We've won some awards for the department in sustainability, and nationally and locally here in the Commonwealth. So I think we've really developed this culture of collaboration, of trust, of credibility, of listening, understanding. They know if they need a resource, they can come to me, and I'll do my best to find that resource, get that resource, whether it's out of the annual budget or operating budget or whatever it may be. It's not a monetary thing. Maybe it's just some support, politically or other. I'll do my best to get that. So I think it's when you have that culture, when you have that collaboration, you are able to make that incremental improvement. And sometimes it's a leap. It's not always incremental. You get some wins, and then you get a big win, and it's exciting and energizing. It's fun.
So when you started as head of DPW in Natick, and the person underneath you was not promoted, was that an intense type of relationship, and how did you work through that?
Sure. It's interesting. So there's a little story behind that. So he, as the fleet supervisor, knew the fleet supervisor in Framingham quite well.
Of course he did.
The fleet supervisor in Framingham actually reported to me. So I recall, after being chosen for the position, I recall getting a phone call from the deputy director, fleet supervisor in Natick. Hey, I want to come on in before you. I hear you're starting next week. Come on into the office the week. Come on in. I want to chat with you. So I went in and visited him in his Natick office, and we had some common friends and peers and so forth, and we hit it off. And we he very involved in different associations, very well respected in his field, well respected within town. In Natick, the fleet also maintains the fire trucks and police vehicles, along with all the public works vehicles. So had a great relationship there that I was able to kind of. He introduced me around a lot, so that certainly helped kind of kickstart some of those relationships. But I remember, I don't know how long it was that I was there, but I remember him coming to me and saying, you know what? I told Martha was the town administrator who decided. I told Martha, she made the right call. She made the right call. You were the right fit for this position, and that was great. That was really special.
So I have a couple of questions, but and it really comes around to we've spent a lot of time talking about technology, you're managing a group of about 85 people, you said, right? We're a small town, and the people management side is really critical. So I'd like to know a little bit about sort of how you manage the 85 people. Do they belong to a union, or
They're 85 folks. They belong to 3 different collective bargaining agreements. The vast majority of the folks in Public Works in Natick are subject to a collective bargaining agreement. Only 3 of us are not. We're personnel board employees. Yep. You establish good working relationships. So, actually, on the way here tonight, I got a text from one of the union stewards. Good luck tonight, Jeremy. Mutual respect. They have concerns, they bring them forward, we talk about them, you're fair, you're consistent, you're empathetic. Collective bargaining agreements, they're a tool, but they shouldn't be a constraint. They're a tool, they're there, they do protect the employees, they protect the employer. But they shouldn't get in the way of making improvement. A couple years ago, we put GPS units, tracking units, in many of the operating vehicles in Public Works, so we could see where the trash trucks are. And we did it for efficiency. So was this route efficient? Were we collecting all the streets in a timely manner, and how long did it take? And there was resistance to that. I've heard of some departments, Public Works, where they try to do that and it's impact bargained. It has to be bargained into the contract. We didn't do that. We did not need to do that. They trusted us that we were going to use it for efficiencies, that yes, the information would be there if we needed to see on the way back from dumping at Wheelabrator, the incinerator, that they were at the coffee shop for too long. Yeah, that information is there. And could be utilized, but they knew that also that information could protect them too. So somebody calls that, hey, this so-and-so was doing something, we have the data to show that no, they actually weren't. So if they're doing their jobs and they're doing it, they have nothing to worry about. So, we're able to put in about, 50, 60 vehicles, these GPS units that help us, we can analyze the vehicle. We can see, is this the right vehicle for the job? Could it be a hybrid? Could it be electric? It feeds back engine data codes to, our work order system in the garage. So it ties into the fuel management system, so we can run miles per gallon type analysis. So there's a lot of great information there, but we wouldn't have been able to do that if we didn't have the trust and that relationship with those folks. I mean, there's many departments, many towns that are not able to do that because the contracts are getting in the way.
Can I just...
Yeah.
Just, as an engineer and all the things that you've done, and we talked about this on Saturday in my process engineering MBA, give me an example, as an engineer, something you did, a project you led, something that you were a big part of, that in hindsight you realized was over-engineered.
Over-engineered. Interesting. So, in hindsight, in a prior work, I did do some roadway and bridge engineering. I recall working on the Crosby's Corner Route 2 project in Concord, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
It's now constructed. At the time, it was a big stack of paper. I recall working on the consultant side, doing that project. It was a Mass DOT project. Many things Mass DOT working on Mass DOT projects that are funded through the TIP that has to go through their standards as opposed to a town project. You compare the two, you could say many of the TIP projects or Mass DOT projects are over-engineered. The cost difference can be incredible. So, an example in Natick, along Route 27, shortly the whole length of it will be reconstructed. The northern part by the state in the Transportation Improvement Plan, compliant, through Mass DOT, the southern portion as a town project. The northern portion, which is maybe about twice the length, is a $20 million project. The southern section, which is half that length, is $4 million.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Stark difference there. Is that over-engineered? Why is there such a disparity in cost?
The reason I ask is we tend to look at technology, find great solutions, and then, as you said earlier, we've discussed, we use a fraction of it. or our citizens use a fraction of it.
Sure,
And
certainly.
we're trying to figure out that perfect blend of efficiency, of technology, and maintaining high touch.
Certainly. So, yeah, I mean, just because the technology exists doesn't mean it's the right technology. I mean, all the bells and whistles, if they're a waste if you're not going to use them. You know, there was a work order system attempted at the Framingham Public Works Department that was very customizable. It was the state of the art, you know, could do everything. You know, they went all in a big way. It ended up not being user-friendly. So the folks in the field worked around it. Instead of using the electronic work orders, they'd print them out on paper, they'd go out with paper, they would go back into the office, and then the clerk would then type it into the work order system. They were working around the system, creating more effort to utilize the software than it should have been less effort. So, you know, that's a failure. That didn't work. They did move on from that software, but you know, after that huge investment, they were reluctant to do so for a while, until it was just abundantly clear that that was just not the way to go. So, you know, that's involving the folks that are going to use the software early. You know, what are these things here? These are all these options. What are we gonna do with them? Do we need all these? Is it simple? Is it the dashboard that whoever's using it, is it simple? Is it what you need?
Yeah, what you need, what our constituents want.
Right, so, you know, we talked a lot about in the profile about communication and, you know, the Board of Selectmen, it being a priority of ours to reach out to our constituents to make sure that all stakeholders get information. Can you talk to us a little bit about your experience with communication and perhaps give us some examples of some of the things that you have done and how you, in your opinion, you've used technology effectively to communicate or other methods, because we know not everybody embraces technology.
Sure. So certainly, I mean, there's all
It's a long question.
various social media platforms that people have adopted, and you know, I find that as a good way to get information out. I have a department Facebook page, Twitter account. I manage it myself and put out stuff continuously. It's kind of fun to keep tabs on things, or to put out different news and whatnot. I've developed a number of followers over today was the Natick Peace Officers Memorial Ceremony was this morning, so I got a little more sun today. And, you know, it was just a nice picture of the memorial and, you know, the event and, you know, pulling in the fire and police and so forth, their social media and, you know, promoting them, and, you know, they feed off of us. So there's certainly, you know, plenty of that. You know, I see it's you know, newer versions of websites, or there's other technology where, you know, your meeting agenda is posted online. You know, all the documents that you discussed could be up there too, you know, accessible electronically, that people can see it. Instead of having this paper, you folks could have tablets or whatnot with that same information. You post it well in advance of the meeting, people can browse it, they can open it at home, they can see it. I mean, I don't know how many times you talk in your meetings where you're like, oh yeah, this paper here, and they're not sure what is at home, what you see, and it's there for the record. It's there, it's searchable in the future as a record. You know, traditional media, certainly, I mean, we still use many traditional means, you know, whether it's advertising in the paper, you know, for procurement, you still have to advertise in the local paper. For our, you know, our annual water quality report, that's actually migrating. Used to have to send that out to all the individuals. Now we can put that online, but still we put like instead of its own mailing, we can put a flyer that advertises where the information is in a water bill or a tax bill. You know, you can use your tax bills as a promote your website, or, you know, go look here for this information. Message boards at the transfer station, lots of traffic there, or, you know, something tasteful maybe in the center of town. You know, we still do mailings. You know, we'll send out annual mailings on our winter maintenance program to all the residents and businesses, and we make a nice flyer, colorful flyer, and gives them information. What if we hit your mailbox? Who to contact? How we go about plowing the streets, and what to expect, who to call, where you can get free salt. As a resident, you can get a bucket. Then for the annual sanitation program, for all the curbside collections, there's different routes and different days of collection. So we send out a mailer still, but we've also used an application that people can get on their phone. They get a pop-up notices. Tomorrow's your trash day. Put your trash out by 7 a.m. They can search what goes where, search on it. What do I do with that old tire? Where can I recycle that? They can find out, and we've customized it to Natick. So, we can bring that to the recycling center, or we can, it goes in the blue bag, or that can be recycled, or that could go in the pink bag, the household good, recycling or reuse program. So there's all sorts of different ways to get out there. Just your local television program doing, you've got a project, do a walk along the rail trail and have that on TV, and talk about, and opportunities there.
I can see you doing a tour of Carroll now. We'll have a camera crew following you around.
Oh, no, we're going to do it. We're going to do a video.
You are?
Yeah.
Bob, any last questions?
Leadership. It's often talked about and rarely actually described. Why don't you talk to me about leadership?
Sure. I guess I'd call myself a quiet leader.
Very soft-spoken.
I think that authoritarian leader, something that maybe we've all envied in history, and the MacArthurs of the world and that sort of thing. But there are many leaders out there that are the collaborative leaders. I read a quote earlier. When was it? Earlier this week. It said, my title makes me a manager. My people make me a leader, right? And that's, I think, the success we've had in Natick Public Works is that, they are stellar, and give them appreciation, tell them they're doing good work, commiserate with them when it's not going so well, find solutions, work with them on solutions to work through that tough day, give them the resources to do their job well, and listen.
Can you give us an example, maybe, in your experience where, you had to implement something and the person that had to do the job just didn't want to change the way
Sure.
they were doing things, and maybe how you were able to overcome it?
Well, it kind of relates a bit to the start I had with Natick Public Works. 85 folks, there's a lot of payroll and timekeeping. Many of those folks are, they're hourly employees. So there's, when I first started there was a paper punch clock, paper cards that about a week's worth of time gets clinked on. That time would then be taken, and those cards would be sorted, and that information then entered into an Access database, and a chart, and calculated with a paper strip. The woman had done it that way for years. Happened to be the same woman that put the padlock on the women's locker room. Her husband was a prior fire chief, and she'd been with the town many years, and it worked. It worked for her. She liked it. She could come in on the weekend and do it, and it was too noisy during the week to do it, so it was on the week. So, it's quickly found that this is just not an efficient way to do things. There are so many other things that we need to do with few people. There's a better way to do this. We don't, all this data transposition, there were always, error, just, then, wouldn't even, once it got over to town hall, they had to do the same thing all over again to get it into their system. So there's a better way to do it. So, sat down early with her, and talk through some ideas on how we could get things to change. And, she was very resistant at the start. She thought she'd lose control of the process, or she wouldn't be needed anymore, or, there was a lot of fears there, fear of technology. I mean, she could use a computer because she's using an Access Excel spreadsheet, but this software, oh my goodness. So, but with a lot of, training her along the whole way as we implemented it with, sure that the vendor helped implement, but we had somebody in staff, or my data analyst, sat with her and implemented it one-on-one. And she quickly found that, oh my goodness, I don't have to do all of that. All this mundane stuff, and all these purchase orders and these things that I always wanted to do, now I can get to do that. And you're gonna still need me, and she's still doing it. She's doing the payroll. So we've implemented.
She still works there?
She still works there.
Congratulations.
Yep.
That's great.
So
Still works weekends?
No, not as much on the weekends.
Budget's day.
For me, the last questions are to ask you to link two things that you've written a lot about and you've discussed and are prominently appear in your resume: sustainability, the road to sustainability, one of your big themes, and pay as you throw.
Sure.
Something that we've had a little bit of experience with.
Sure. So, I mean, the sustainability in Natick, was well established, before I came.
It's a community that's envied by many.
So, a fair amount of time ago, a sustainability coordinator position was established. There were more reports to the town administrator. That started off as kind of a half-time role, went to a full-time role. It's currently a half-time role, to be flexible for the person that's in that role. She may go back to a full-time role, but they were an early adopter of the Green Communities program. Really took advantage of that. Quickly realized they checked off the checklist quite quickly. 40% reduction in carbon, check, done. More than 30% reduction in energy use. The current municipal energy budget in Natick is 1.5 million, all together. I mean, it's all consolidated as a division in Public Works, which helps us manage it, helps us to purchase energy contracts that, we can require it to have some green energy contribution if we want, or we can go for the low. And we're locked in pricing, for the future at a known rate. So it's sustainable by way of a budget. Early adopters of green communities, maxed out the grants, about $250,000 per year to do energy retrofits, building retrofits with energy management system, LED light swap outs. All the town's street lights were converted to LED. They've had a curbside recycling and trash pickup program for some time, but found when they went to a pay-as-you-throw program with the blue bags, they reduced their solid waste generation by 40%. It's essentially 1 year, and an amazing change in the volume. People are just more aware of what they were throwing away, so they pay for each bag. It's put on the curb and weekly collected. They had a vendor for many years doing recycling collection. At the time, the state of the practice was all commingled, single stream, put it all in one bucket, let it be sorted at a facility. They had a vendor doing that. Did a cost-benefit analysis, found that it could be cheaper, more efficiently done in-house and have better customer service. So they purchased the equipment to do that, and the bins. But that's given the town the flexibility to do a number of pilot programs. So we did curbside composting, collecting compost at the curb, and working with the town of Needham at their facility to see how we could kind of do some municipal agreements. For a bit, we were collecting. They had an elementary school that wanted, the students wanted to collect all their food scraps, but they had no place to go. Needham didn't have the trucks to move it, so we did. So we collected their food scraps, and we brought the food scraps and our curbside compost to Needham's transfer station. They have a composting facility, and it was a great partnership for the program. So we got a lot of great data from that. We found that it wasn't cost-effective for us to add that program, but we've morphed it into, we still have a curbside compost collection program that is, we provide incentives for. We are not pushing out to the broader public, it's just not there yet, but the next pilot would be to do, since the pay as you bag program's already in place, would be to collect garbage in the blue bag, plastics in the yellow bag, paper in the tan bag, compost in your green bag, put it all in the same truck and then have it sorted. So that would be able to utilize the same truck driver, the same truck. We don't need to get more. So that's our next pilot program to see how that might work. And the way the recycling market is now, that single stream model that's great. Oh my goodness, it's great. It's not working well in that the markets, in the East are much more constrained. And there's some markets opening up in other countries, but it's still not what it was. And the technology, unfortunately, is not there in the separation facilities to really get it clean. We've done a number of solar generation projects. I'm told the Public Works Department in Natick is carbon neutral, is solar on the roof and any LED. So where the fleet storage is currently was a hockey rink. It was converted into fleet storage, another hockey rink was built, and the offices up front. So the lights in there were ancient, they'd had that buzzing sound and loud, and it cost us like $200 to get those all replaced. The payback, the incentive that the utility companies gave us to replace those was incredible. And now it's nice and quiet in there. But the payback was just crazy. So, but you do all those things, and it's nice to get some recognition, put forward some awards and get some recognition for it. Give ourselves a pat on the back, and then you look forward to the next.
Do you have a question?
No, I'm good.
You good? Okay, so we're going to ask you the toughest question of the night. What makes you, in your opinion, a great fit for the town administrator job in Dover? And what skills do you bring to the table that you really want to make successful?
Sure. Well, I really enjoy municipal government. I like the variety. I like to be that kind of jack of all trades. I like to come in and solve things. I like to be involved in the planning, in the consideration of how to solve this problem, and then to solve it and implement it, and provide a service for the public, or to build something, whether it be an actual bridge or to build a team. I have proven experience successful experience that I've done that. I have, an engineering background, an engineering degree. I have a master's of business degree. Just recently received a graduate certificate in local government leadership and management. I have a great, tried to establish a large peer group of individuals that I can go to for bounce things off of. They probably have experienced the same thing, and how they handle it, what were the pitfalls. Great relationships with peers in Wellesley and Needham, Medfield. I try to be as active as I can in different associations to kind of hear what the best practices may be. I think I'm a consistent. I try to be consistent and fair. I try to appreciate and be empathetic to workers, and I think and people that I work with, try to think of as a team. I like the flat organization of Natick Public Works. It's kind of nice. I've been an active volunteer in the town that I live in. I really understand and value the work of volunteers and the importance they bring to a town. Without them, There's just not enough resources to do all the good works that the town wants to do, whether it be a rail trail or whether it be, improving recycling at your transfer station. There's just not capacity within town government to do that, nor should there be. There doesn't need to be, because there's engage the public. I appreciate that. I've seen that firsthand.
Well, Bob here's done an excellent job engaging. I was so impressed with this marketing website that he put together. Well, his team put together. It is. There are so many resources in this town, and some really smart people that will be first to tell you how smart they are and why you should do it their way, but they do always offer something.
Certainly.
You good?
We're good.
Thank
So
you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Very, very much. It's good to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Don't forget your pen.
It's easier for you, Jerry, than anybody else.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good seeing you again.
Jeremy, nice to see you.
Are you handing out business cards?
I just, so you can see it on YouTube there.
Okay. So Devin, are you from the newspaper?
I'm not.
Okay.
This is funny. I was just telling my sweet neighbor that I'm applying for the assistant position. I have an interview actually next week.
Okay.
And I thought, I'll just sneak in and do some homework in the back of the room, and then I got here and realized there was no back of the room. Not very sneaky, but I look forward to, being in Dover next week and interviewing with the panel.
That's great. We won a small town, so it's no sneaking.
That's what she said.
Great.
Yeah, there's no sneaking, and you're sitting next to Carol Lisbon. So,
Well, she engaged me immediately, so I knew that I was next to the right person.
yeah.
Just make sure she doesn't take one step back. You could be way in big
Yeah, the
trouble.
voluntold.
You may be serving on 4 committees before you leave here tonight.
The voluntold was a big theme tonight, so, but yeah,
Thank you for coming.
Yeah,
It's
thanks
a-
for letting me.
So what's your view on modernization?
Don't answer that yet.
I was going to say, I look forward to discussing it next week.
Yes,
So, thank
exactly.
you. Thank you, it was great to speak out now, no speaking now.
Okay. Thank you for attending.
Of course.
Thank you.
From the newspaper.
Yeah. That's great.
That's right, about too, that's right after.
I think we all made the same judgment.
So, we have 2 really strong candidates. They definitely have different personalities. So, Judy, how do you want to start this discussion?
Have you decided whether you would like to deliberate this evening and then vote at a second time? And
Yeah, so this is a really important decision for the town, so I would like to have discussion this evening. I also understand it's late. I would also like to be able to sleep on
deliberation?
the deliberation, and I would suggest if maybe, when's the earliest we could have a meeting?
The next one's the 28th.
Next one's the 28th.
Tuesday.
Could we do one on Friday?
No, I'm away.
Okay. So then maybe on the 28th, just vote. I mean, it's a week away.
Yeah, no,
Is that
it's,
too much time? Or
well,
let's see how the discussion goes?
Sure. Do you, there's no, I don't have any issues with any of the resumes that I would like further clarification on. In terms of the conversations that we've had, the conversations that the screening committee has there's nothing in either resume, in either presentation, in either person that leads me to say, I really want to dig into this one particular item deeper.
Further? Yeah.
Further. Do you agree with that?
I do.
Robin, do you?
Right, so, I think, we spent a lot of time putting together the profile, and we spent a lot of time identifying the challenges that the next town administrator was going to focus, and at the same time, as a committee, what was really important to us was the staff, the remaining staff that was here, and wanting to make sure that whomever the new leader was going to be would understand how critical it was for us to modernize the town, but at the same time be able to be a shepherd for those that are going to be using the technology. So I think the screening committee did an excellent job finding two candidates that could bring the town into the modern era, and that was their job and their role. And now it's for us to determine which one of these candidates is a better fit for the town of Dover, and in our opinion, the one that's going to work with the staff to modernize the town, because we all agree that we need to make some changes here and begin to move things forward. Each of the candidates has a different style to them. One is, Chris is more outgoing, whereas Jeremy is more quiet. I think, in my opinion, both of them have demonstrated their ability to implement the program. I get more of a sense from Jeremy that he was able to work with a department, and albeit it's not a town, but he was able to implement change, and the way he did it was by rolling up his sleeves and demonstrating that he could and working with them. Chris brings a consulting approach to it. So there are different kinds of approaches, which approach, in my mind, both of them could implement the programs for us. I don't have an issue with it. The question is, whose style is a better fit?
Mm-hmm. I agree with all the parts, specifically regarding the screening committee, the quality of the candidates, the fact that they could both do this job, the fact that they would both, I think they would both excel at the job. The decision for me has more to do with the things that have happened this year and last year, where we've taken a very proactive approach to moving into a different direction, not a different direction, but we're embracing a lot of changes. We've proven last year that we could go through a year where we had 5 key positions leave, a change, and really not miss a beat, but I think it's also emphasized things that we absolutely have to address. Technology and transparency and a vision of moving into this next phase of our town together, where we're not going to alienate anybody, but we're going to move forward together. So that part, we've already begun that process, because we're here. We're interviewing for 2 very important positions with 2 very qualified people. Where the difference for me is, in one candidate, you have a young person with a young family who sees Dover through the eyes of a 30-year-old, and you have in another candidate a person who sees Dover through the eyes of a 45-year-old, 40-year-old.
Both young and both hip.
So you have to, I have tried to, they're both very well qualified and they have a lot of tremendous attributes. I want to be sure that the person that I vote for is going to be the person that can really continue the process that we've started and be embraced by everyone. So I guess you'll never be embraced by everyone.
No, you're never going.
You're never going to make everybody happy, but I want everybody to know that part of it has been something we considered.
Well, but we've demonstrated that, so we don't have to articulate that, because, at the onset of this process, we said we were going to be inclusive, and we've done that. This past week, we've asked both candidates to come back, not only meet with the staff, but also meet with
That was it was an enormous effort.
Right, and, we also, because of our schedules, and actually I think it worked out better, each of us were able to meet with each of the candidates one-on-one and talk to them about their experiences. And, and again, I felt that we brought the two best candidates to the town. So the question is, we're never going to be able to make everybody happy. Even amongst us, we may
Correct.
not be able to make everybody happy, but at the end of the day, whomever the candidate is that we vote on, we all have to come together and work together with this person and make them successful, because their success is our success, and it's what's going to make Dover a place where people want to work and live.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so every time I face this type of decision, and I have done it many times, I always think first about where the organization, in this case the town, is looking to go, what the challenges and opportunities moving in that direction is going to face, and looking at several different people, who do I think would be the best individual to meet the challenges, actually to overcome the challenges and to meet the opportunities. I don't know how many people applied for the job, 30-ish? 31-ish. Which is a heck of a lot of people. It was interesting to sit here, and this is the second, we've met these applicants before, and in different ways, sort of got to many of the same points. Whether it was talking about technology, and technology is a wonderful tool, but
Doesn't work for everyone.
it's a difficult thing to do well. And so ultimately what I've learned in a year on the board is and it's really no different in business. Ultimately it comes down to the leadership and the people who are asked or tasked with doing the job. So each of them talked in very different ways about the importance of teams, leading teams, listening to what people have to say, getting feedback, taking the appropriate time to syndicate ideas. So there's documenting the process. So if you just look at sort of that spectrum of a person's work, they're all pretty even. So I still come back. I come back to me, the issues will ultimately be sort of leadership and management skills, and they're different. I think that having good the ability, sort of an management ability to do, persuade and influence are very, very important attributes. We all know that Board of Selectmen have a relatively narrow field of influence. And we know that in order to make Dover work as effectively as it can, pulling people in and talking to people across a broad spectrum is very important. Technical literacy is clearly a must. So management, leadership, political and collaborative skills, technical leadership are the things that I think are the most important. I was that 33-year-old guy going for a big job. I know what that's like. I like the broad experience. I like the different experience that Chris possesses. It's sort of broad. It's not long. And I also appreciate, in a very real sense, someone who has different, deeper, and more experience. But ultimately, it comes down to a feel. Who do I feel would be the best person to take Dover forward? And I think you all have. It would all be.
Well, at the end of the day, it's your gut.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's your gut.
So I don't think age should be an issue here. It's whether or not a person is the right person for the job. So I've taken that equation off the table. You know, having spent a lot of time in the townhouse and watching the interactions with both candidates, with the staff, getting to know some of the staff, actually talking to those members of the staff that would not fill out an input form for me. But felt that their feedback was really important to this whole process. You know, just watching the interactions with citizens, I think I know which one of these candidates is better for the town. You know, when we were looking at interim town managers, town administrators, you know, I was wondering how Carl was going to be effective given how quiet he was. And then he came in here and took this place by storm. And I was just blown away by that because the other candidate we had talked to was much better spoken. He was better spoken. He had some great ideas. And in hindsight, as I reflect back on those interviews, I am so pleased that we went with a more soft-spoken candidate because I'm not sure we would be in the same position we're in today had we gone with the other individual who would have gotten things done because he had a way he did things. But I find Carl a breath of fresh air, and somehow in his own quiet way, he's earned the respect of everybody in this building. And so I feel as though sometimes maybe being a little more, a quiet leader is not something to count against a person.
Carl was an experienced town administrator.
But none of these people, we knew going into this, none of these individuals are experienced town administrators. Neither of these two men have faced any of the issues that an experienced town administrator is going to face. Well, the individuals we got for the interim job are very, very different to those candidates that we got for this job. Each of these individuals is ambitious. Each of these guys have done everything that they can to put themselves in a position where they can move their careers forward. Chris started out in the legislature, worked in the Collins Center, and became the town administrator, assistant town administrator for Yarmouth. Jeremy is an engineer, project manager, ended up in public works, but recognized that to achieve his goals, he needed to do more. So he went to school at night, got an MBA. He then recognized that he's potentially pigeonholing himself, went back to school at night after, working full days. Neither of these guys come in at 9 and are going to clock out at 5. I've had those conversations with both of them. They both understand that this is almost a 24/7 job, because you have to be on call and available. So, I think both of them, they just bring a really different background. And Chris is coming in from up here, and Jeremy is coming in from down in the weeds, and the town administrator job is around here. So I feel as though you have one coming from the bottom up and the other coming from the top down as far as experience goes. Much more broad brush. One who's been on the ground building things. So 2 different ways to get to the same place.
It still comes back to who you feel is the best positioned by inclination, talent, experience, et cetera, to move us ahead. And, I know that we have a difference of opinion about how quickly things should move.
But that's okay. Those speed, right, can always be compensated for. The sailing reference there. So we can always change our speed. The person, right? The person who's going to be the representative of that process, who's going to help us drive that process, is I don't think we'll make a mistake. I don't think we'll leave the process saying, looking back 2 years or 2 months or 6 months from now and say we made a mistake. I just think that there will be a different skill set that we, in our capacity, will work with. Whichever person we choose, we're going to have to manage us to help them. And it's going to be incumbent upon us to understand whichever person we choose, that we're going to have to provide different types of support and direction than you would with.
But that's bi-directional. You can,
Yeah.
You can either way.
We can do that either way. So
I'm not sure you can accelerate as much as I'm sure you can add experience.
in terms of the speed of the process. Yeah, but to Robin's point about from the bottom up or from the top down, there's gonna be, we're gonna have to decide which of those directions, just to use that example, which of those directions are we more comfortable with, right? Come to a consensus and then decide how it is that the collective us, not only us, but everybody out there, is going to have to work with that person to get where we want to go. It's going to require a little bit different skill, a little bit of a different approach with whichever person we decide.
So both individuals are going to need mentoring and guidance. And
Correct.
I think we recognize that from the get-go, which is
Yep.
why we've arranged with Carl to be available as a consultant.
Yep.
Which, I mentioned to both of these individuals. In talking to Jeremy, he had mentioned to me that through his leadership training, so whatever that thing is, where they're trying to encourage individuals to become town administrators. So through that program, he met a lot of current town managers and town administrators, and
he felt that if he was given the opportunity to be a part of this role, one of the things he would do is reach out to the surrounding town administrators and managers to, as a peer, to see how they do things in their town, and to then compare that to the way we do things in Dover. He had also talked to me about how a benchmarking program that Natick had done with Wellesley had turned out to be so beneficial to both towns. So, so I don't, neither of these are experienced town administrators. Both of them are gonna need help. And we recognize that from the get-go.
Right.
And I certainly not in any position to help them, other than to give them historic background on the town and maybe some insight into some of the personalities that will show up at their door.
That's a long list.
Right,
That's
I'm not an experienced town administrator. I'm a CFO.
right. There are skill sets that we have,
So I don't think,
but we've
for
never
us-
done that job.
For us, our job here is to get together, have goals that we agree upon, and sit down with whomever we decide and say, these are our goals, there's a 5-year plan, this is what we want to see accomplished. in a
All right,
year.
let me tell you why I will give you how I feel about both, and why I think one person is my choice for the first person, and then if you don't feel the same way, what I think what we'd have to agree to come to a consensus on that we would do for the second person, okay? So
I don't quite understand that.
so number one, I'm
John,
gonna
we
give
can
you.
only hire one, so
I know.
one person is going to
But
be disappointed.
now this may come as a surprise to you. You may not agree with my number one.
I mean, go for it.
So-
Tell me my number one.
So, if you don't agree with my number one,
I'll be quiet.
that's impossible. But,
No, this is a democracy. You tell me your position, I'll tell you mine, Bob will tell us his, and then we
Okay.
can have a discussion.
so my first choice would be Chris, because the way he approaches learning about things that he does not know. And it first dawned on me when we were driving around how his world is so much different from my world, what he sees and how he sees it. And I think that's just a function of age and experience, right? So I would not at all be disappointed in any way if the two of you disagreed with me and said that's not enough, right? That's not enough. I think for where we are and where we're going at this inflection point, that Chris could be that person that makes everybody around him look at the things that we're facing, rail trail, carroll, taxes, money, free cash, all the things that were a bit controversial. They will look at the world, maybe, through his eyes, or at least he would be able to articulate what a 30-year-old sees as our opportunities. So that's my start. Take it from there.
Right, so I have a different approach. So I am looking at, the challenges that face the town, the staff that we have in place, the citizens of Dover, and I'm trying to assess the skill set that we need to affect change. And as I had said before, I think both of these individuals can implement the change that we're looking to have done. I think Jeremy's approach is a better fit for Dover. I think he's quiet,
He's a leader. He's willing to roll up his sleeves and be part of the team. And he gave us examples of how he did it. When I came in here as a young professional trying to volunteer, thinking I knew everything, as I experienced the town hall, I recognized that the way I could earn respect was by doing things. Because if I did things, I earned the respect of the people in this townhouse. And I think that's what Jeremy's approach is. So I believe he would be a better fit for the town and for the employees.
Do you think, so I don't disagree with his mannerism, his approach, his experience. He's demonstrated that. Everything that you said, he's demonstrated.
I also look over the next 5 years at the various projects that we have in place. Carroll, the rail trail, trying to put processes in place for evaluating capital and
Technology.
technology. And I too, on Saturday, walked around town with him, and I said to myself, oh my word, wouldn't it be nice to have somebody that's actually knowledgeable about systems, about buildings, about infrastructure, that has done things, taken a different approach from Dover. I asked him outright, I was concerned that maybe it was such a big town and that he had a large staff. And I asked who the grant writer was. And he said, I go look for the grants myself and I write them and the town administrator, signs off on them. So, to me, I feel as though his skill set is complementary in a sense to what we need right now in the town of Dover. And then some of his weaknesses are there as well, but I think there are, we can give him support to become a more all-rounded town manager.
So those arguments all work both ways. That's part of the problem.
Right.
And so I favor Chris. And I favor Chris because I just was impressed with the things that were written on the resume that we verified.
You can't verify everything.
Well, his work gave him a broad experience. He looked at organizations, complex, big organizations, and has been successful in the things that he's done. The ATA job at Yarmouth that he's done, I guess, for 2 years, is a big job. And it seemed to me, at least in the conversations that we had, that an awful lot of the job of the TA was delegated to the ADA and that he was running the show. He talked about, hands-on. He talked about all the things that we talked about. So early on, in one of the first conversations, we said it's going to come down to a gut feel. And I would say that the people that as the town itself has transitioned in its demographics and population with the influx of a lot of younger people and young families. Chris is that demographic. And I think he fits that particular, fits over in that way. Both guys are going to need support. They're going to need different kinds of support. To me, marrying somebody like Carl up with Chris is a double win. And it's just those two people, I have a great deal of confidence, can make the next 6, 9, 9 months really, really special. Mm-hmm. So that's...
Is there anything, do you think there are any glaring gaps that we would need to fill for Chris?
I think it's the having that seasoned mentor would go a long way to,
Yeah. And that's what Robin alludes to and argues for with Jeremy. Jeremy, there's no guess, there's no,
So my concerns about Chris are, I know what it's like to transition from being a consultant to a doer.
me too.
At Price Waterhouse, I was an auditor. Being an auditor is very different from coming into an organization and actually doing the accounting. It's a huge transition. And what I worry about with Chris is that, yes, on paper, he has a depth of experience, but he has barely touched the surface. He is he is starting out in his career. And there are so many things you learn in the school of hard knocks.
Which is why you need a mentor.
A mentor can do so much. I am, Chris is well-spoken, he's energized. I have no qualms that he can implement technology. Certain things that he said, like the use of the word I all the time, and then it went to team. Those things throughout the 6 interviews that I sat in with him, that was consistently said, and that's something that troubles me, because the person that we hire has to be a team player, and that person has to be the champion of the technology, and you need grassroots support to do that. And I think Chris is super smart, and he'll come in there and he'll write the program for you, and then I worry about when he's left and he's given you the dashboard. Can you continue to do what you're supposed to do?
He talked well through that. So, I mean, I don't know if we're just repeating ourselves or we're adding new information.
well, we don't have to vote this evening.
Well,
We can deliberate and take it all under advisement. And as you said, it's a big, big decision, and we should probably sleep on it. And we should probably make sure that if there are doubts,
well, I think I'm the only one who doubts, so, to prolong this another 7 days makes no sense. So if the two of you are confident that Chris is the right choice for Dover, and I'm the only one with doubts, then what's going to change in 7 days? My gut isn't going to change. I've sat through 7 of these interviews. I went back and forth. Again, whomever we decide, if it's not my choice, it doesn't matter, because we're a team and we have to move the town forward, and I'm going to do whatever I can to make that person successful, whether or not I felt he was the right choice.
I think we should vote.
Well, I think we already voted, so.
I think we did. But we have to actually vote. You have to.
So, I'll make a motion to appoint, or to begin the negotiations to appoint Chris Wiley as the lieutenant commissioner.
Second.
All in favor?
Favor?
Aye. And will you take that responsibility to, as you are going to...
We've had all the work.
You will be the person to negotiate.
Well, you need to vote on that too.
So I'll make a
So I
motion
think
to,
that-
you want to make a motion to?
I think you know the process, and you've met with him more than any of us. And that was I think that was the reason why
Kevin and I are gonna.
Yes.
you,
So,
as the chair, so I would nominate Robin
I'll make
Hunter,
a motion.
not the chair.
You
I
have to
make
make
a
the motion.
move that the chair, Robin Hunter, be authorized to negotiate on behalf of the town with Chris.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is there anything else that we
Any comments?
comment?
I've never been this quiet.
Can we continue?
I really envy all three of you, but I think you did a great job. And I think the right decision was made. That's my gut.
Thank you.
He spoke more about Dover, and Jeremy didn't speak anything about Dover, what he could do. You know, I know him on TV, and I like Jeremy, and but I just think...
It's a democracy, everyone's entitled to.
And I think the right decision was made on
We're gonna certainly work to make it
Yeah.
the right one.
So,
Thank you. Motion to
do I
adjourn?
have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.